Hoop Dreams uses parallel stories about two high school kids pursuing their dream to play in the NBA to present observations about race, education, poverty, and the American dream. We're talking all about it this week in Kaden's Movie Club. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it, beat it. Filmmakers Steve James and Frederick Marks knew they wanted to make a film about the relationship between basketball and black communities. But originally, Hoop Dreams was only intended to be a 30-minute special on PBS that would focus on just one playground court in Chicago. Things started to change when the filmmakers joined a talent scout on a visit to an inner-city playground where they planned to film. There, the scout spotted Arthur Agee, who was 14 years old at the time.
I will bet you a steak dinner. In 4 years, you'll be hearing from him. I don't even know anything about him.
And with just that one coincidence, Hoop Dreams would eventually evolve from a 30-minute special to a project that took the filmmakers 5 years to film, in which they got 250 hours of footage. Now, you might hear a lot of filmmakers say that story really comes together in the edit, and that's true. But it's even more true when it comes to documentary filmmaking. The filmmakers probably have an idea of what they think the story will be, but they're capturing that story as it unfolds in front of them. It's only through editing that those moments become a story for us to follow as an audience. Starting their freshman years, both Arthur and William are recruited to play basketball for a private high school called St. Joseph, located in a suburb of Chicago.
Both Arthur and William make a 3-hour round trip each day between the city and St. Joseph's.
It was strange for me going out to a far-out school. I saw a rug, flowers, clean hallways, things that I didn't see in an ordinary school.
At the start of the story, it seems like we're going to be following William and Arthur on similar paths, but it's not long before those paths diverge.
Scout out these little basketball players and get them to come to their school and offer them these scholarship. Then once they get out there, the story is totally different.
With the Agees owing $1,500 in back payments, St. Joseph's forced Arthur to leave the school.
You have to draw the line because, as I said, tuition is something that as a school we depend on.
I guess he thought I wasn't going to be that big of a ball player, so why would he just waste some money on me?
Meanwhile, William continues to be a prodigy back at St. Joseph. William starts on the varsity team as a freshman, and his name is already being tossed around by sports commentators and college recruiters.
Dear William, there's gold at the end of the rainbow. $500 in there for you too.
So at this point, if the filmmakers really wanted to make a documentary about the next big basketball star, it would have made sense to abandon Arthur's story and focus just on William. But they didn't do that. And that's because they understood, even at this stage, the story wasn't really about basketball at all. There's no way William's family could afford the school either, but his tuition fees are covered by a wealthy sponsor.
To help kids that couldn't otherwise go to those kind of schools, it really touched a soft spot in my heart. William was selected as the kid that was able to go to school based on our contribution.
With continuing support from Patricia Weir, William is assured that his entire education at St. Joe's will be free.
Arthur's new coach back at public Marshall High School bluntly tells the filmmakers and the audience how things work.
If he was going out there and he was playing like they had predicted him to play, he wouldn't be at Marshall. Economics wouldn't have had anything to do with him not being in St. Joe's. Somebody would have made some kind of arrangement and the kid would have still been there. And it doesn't take no brilliant person to figure that out.
And with that, the movie has presented its real underlying subject. Through the parallel stories of Arthur and William, the film is going to document a predatory system from start to finish. But what's interesting is that the movie never spoon-feeds this idea to the audience. Throughout the documentary, we hear a narrator, but notice, the narrator never makes any kind of observation about what's going on. All of the strongest observations are made by how the filmmakers structured those real-life moments into a story. For example, William suffers from a bad knee injury. William's doctor and the rehab facilities he goes to are the same ones used by the NBA players on the Chicago Bulls.
Both of William's operations and rehabs have been paid for by the school's insurance.
Meanwhile, Arthur might not be able to graduate from high school on time. He's having to take summer school every year, and part of the reason for that is St. Joseph refuses to release Arthur's transcript to the public school system until Arthur's parents pay his outstanding tuition fees.
Could his credits be released too? As long as you show me good faith after the first 2 months, I'll release them.
Wish he could have stayed here, though, you know.
Yeah, well, things happen, you know.
The movie presents two wildly different scenarios, but lets the audience connect the dots on our own. There's obviously more than enough money. The system does not view these kids or their families as people to be loved, helped, or cared for. It views them as a resource. In William's case, he becomes a kind of commodity. He impresses news outlets and donors with his talent, and St. Joseph gets all the credit for creating a great program. But in Arthur's case, when they feel he doesn't hold that same value that William does, the opportunity for a good education is taken away as quickly as it came. And on top of that, the family is put into a worse situation than they were before. In William's story, we meet his older brother Curtis. Back in the day, Curtis was supposed to be the next big star.
I had even signed at Marquette because they thought I was going to make the grades. The great ball player. They care about basketball more than they care about school, and I know they do.
He talks about how he was given such assurance about his skills at basketball that he never invested in his education or any real skills outside of basketball. So when that dream faded, he essentially felt kicked to the curb. And all of those hopes and dreams have transferred onto William.
They always tell me, well, you should do this and you should do that. It's like everybody I know is my coach.
At the same time, Arthur's father has a similar sentiment. He also speaks about all of his hopes and dreams resting on Arthur.
I don't even think about it, if he don't make it, I just, because I'm so, focused in on him making it. I just know he'll make it.
So William and Arthur aren't the only parallel stories. There's parallel stories between Arthur and his father, between William and his brother, between Arthur's father and William's brother. The way these people are depicted within this story shows us how multiple generations have been led to believe that being a basketball star is one of the only guaranteed tickets to a better life. The hoop dreams that the title is referencing are not just childhood ambitions for these two kids, they're the hopes and dreams of entire families and communities. Everybody in the movie is constantly referring to Isaiah Thomas, the NBA player that graduated from St. Joseph. The school and their recruiters are constantly holding Thomas up as the model for these kids. If they can just somehow become the best basketball player in the state, then their problems will be solved.
When I get an NBA, first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go see my mama. I'm gonna buy a house. Probably get my dad Cadillac Oldsmobile so he can cruise in the game.
Which is why their parents allow them to commute 3 hours a day to a predominantly white private school. One where the basketball team is made up mostly of black kids who have been plucked from their neighborhoods with all of these promises. Promises that we saw through Arthur are only fulfilled if you can bring value to that system. And toward the end of the story, we see even when those promises are fulfilled, this exploitative process takes a toll of its own.
4 years ago, that's all I used to dream about was playing in the NBA. I don't really dream about it like that anymore. If I had to stop playing basketball right now, I think I'd still be happy. That's why when somebody say, man, when you get to the NBA, don't forget about me and all that stuff, I should say to them, well, if I don't make it, but you don't forget about me.
And there's one really interesting scene where William goes to visit his high school coach one final time.
We had run-ins and
Who had run-ins?
Me and you.
Everything that was done was for your benefit, so that you can come back 4 years from now and say, Coach, you were right. Everything that happened at St. Joe's helped me a lot, and as a result, I got a degree. That's what I'm hoping for.
I'm going into communication, so when you start asking for donations, I know the right way to turn you down.
There are all kinds of ways the scene could have been edited. It genuinely could have appeared like William and the coach parted on friendly terms, but the filmmakers deliberately leave in silent pauses and awkward interactions. From this, they tried to represent what they felt was the truth of the moment. William resents his coach and the school. Yes, he was able to get a scholarship and he's excited about that, but he could sense that he was never really cared about, that he was being used.
Another one walks out the door, and another one comes in the door. That's what it's all about.
At the end of Arthur's story, he leaves home to go to a junior college in Missouri, even though it's not his ideal situation.
I'm ready to leave. There ain't nothing up. Everybody up here going to jail or either in drugs or dead.
Everyone in Arthur's life, from his father to his best friend, have been affected by the issues that come with an impoverished community. And those experiences have led him to believe that if he can't prove to the wealthier people, like those at St. Joseph, for example, that he's worth investing in, all that's left for him is the same life he's seen people like his father or Curtis living, where they either barely get by or get involved with the illegal substances because it pays more than a legitimate job. Which is why at the end of the movie, Arthur's goal is still to try and get to the NBA.
When I was young, when I was little, that's all I used to think about, the NBA. If I set my mind, I can go. I can go. But if I don't, I ain't gonna be no drug dealer, cry about it, come back and, stick up gas stations and nothing like that,
You don't think that you'll have the kind of tough times like that your dad's been through?
Nah. I can't say that I will, I can't say that I don't know.
With Hoop Dreams, the filmmakers took a simple real-life topic, a high school basketball career, and cut down hundreds of hours of raw material into a compelling story. A story that discusses serious flaws within systems that are meant to help people. And it does that not with direct statements, but by using the medium of film and editing to communicate that idea in a way that actually resonates. We won't all have the same life experiences, but the closest we can get to walking in another person's shoes is hearing their story. Thanks to the way these filmmakers were able to mold this story by editing a huge amount of recorded material into a film, Hoop Dreams allows us to walk walk in the shoes of several people, including Arthur Agee and William Gates, so that audiences can really come to understand what it feels like to be them in a way that speeches and statistics may not be able to do. And that empathy is so important because it's only through true empathy and understanding that people will be motivated to change the systems that create the real-life problems we witnessed through this story. And next week, we're going to be taking a look at a movie completely removed from reality, one that uses editing to make the on-screen adventure feel seamless. This is the kind of editing that isn't flashy. You're not supposed to notice it. It's meant to be so effective that it disappears and you get completely swept up into the escapism the story is offering. When George Lucas and Steven Spielberg made their first Indiana Jones movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, they were really trying to recreate their own childhoods. Inspired by the serials they had watched as kids, they set out to create a B-movie, a fun, lean action-adventure movie that could be made with old-school film techniques that didn't need a massive budget. But this movie ends up on lists of the best edited films of all time for a reason, and I don't think Indiana Jones would have become the cinematic icon that he is if Raiders wasn't such an efficiently crafted adventure story edited by Michael Kahn. So here's some questions to keep in mind while you watch. How does the editing of this movie compare with more recent action movies in terms of pace and style? Pay attention to which shots are chosen at which time. Why would the editor choose a wide shot versus a close-up? Why would they cut back to another character or to a part of the environment? How are action scenes structured so we never lose track of what's going on? How does the editing disappear into the movie? How does it merge with the other elements of filmmaking to draw the audience's attention away from the medium itself and fully immerse them into the story? So let's chat about Hoop Dreams in the comments, and I'll see you back here next Sunday to discuss Raiders of the Lost Ark. And if you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.